assured. And now we're working in His kingdom with our eyes upon the clouds, listening any moment to hear the trumpet sound. He'll come as no surprise. He'll break those eastern skies. Our long-awaited flight will lift us high. We are nobody knows, but the day He comes we'll go. We'll keep a watchful eye. He'll come as no surprise.
Are you making plans to stay here? Like there's plenty of time to spare. You're saving for some rainy day so you can be prepared. Unless your plans include me leaving right before your eyes. Friend, be ready to go with me, for He'll come as no surprise.
He'll come as no surprise. He'll break those eastern skies.
Our long-awaited flight will lift us high.
Nobody knows,
But the day He
comes we'll go.
will keep a watchful eye. He'll come as no surprise. We'll keep a watchful eye. He'll come as no surprise.
A lot of folks ask us, where did the word happy come from?
You talk about excitement in me. I am wired and ready to go. And when I walk in,
And when I heard that, my ears perked up, and I said, "Wow, what is this?"
This is the Happy Goodman Family Reunion Radio Special. I'm Chris Daniels, your host, as we listen in on an hour of memories from the first family of gospel music. The occasion is the release of their brand new album, their first in 10 years. It's on Word Records, and it's called, what else, The Reunion. We'll hear a lot of music from that album, some old friends may drop by, and we'll just have a good visit with the Goodmans. The group consisted of various members in the early years, but when most people think of the Happy Goodman family, they think of these four people: the three brothers, Howard, Sam, and Rusty, and Howard's wife, Vestal. They've sung for presidents, played to packed houses all over the world. They've sold millions of records and pioneered a lot of the territory that gospel music now takes for granted. Well, we've got 10 years of catching up to do. So Vestal starts things off by telling us what she and Howard have been doing since 1980.
when we first left the group, we went to California and did a series of television programs for Trinity Broadcasting.
Right.
Paul Kratz and them. We did 50-something weeks of shows, 26 weeks, which was 52 weeks of shows, and they ran that a long time. Then we did just church work. Then we did a lot of Christian television all over the country, and mainly churches.
Yeah.
Just churches, church after
few
church for
concerts.
revival. No, we didn't do more than 2 or 3 concerts would be the max for us. But we do many concerts in our revivals.
Yeah.
Rick has never turned loose the idea of the family getting back together, and for the last 2 or 3 years, it's just been almost top priority for him.
Yeah.
And when he felt like that he was really pulling it together and started saying, "Mother, you better look at this song. Now you need to check this song. You need to call Uncle Rusty and encourage Uncle Rusty to write a new song, because the family is fixing to record an album together." This concert tour with the Happy Goodman family, the reunion tour, has got excitement in me. You talk about excitement in me. I am wired and ready to go. And when I walked in that studio, the first time that they hit that music and these four voices started to singing again, I knew this is it.
I guess I was the next dropout of the family. Rusty and myself kept the family going for a couple of years, but God moved on our lives to go a different direction, a new direction for our own personal ministry, and elevating God and what He's done in the past. I came home and told my wife, I said, baby, I've quit the family. I've got to preach, and I've got to sing full-time in evangelistic work. Barbara is a praying woman, and she said, Daddy, I can't sing a special song or play any instruments, but said, I'll go with you and help you pray. For the past 10 years, Barbara and I have traveled all over the United States, traveling up and down the highways, flying, Christian television, doing things that we would just absolutely love. And then for 6 years or 7 years that went on, and then the talk began in a family reunion. Well, our first love is our family. First love is God, but then family, is next. And then I said, well, I can't do it. I just, God's blessed us too much in what we're doing. Would we be backing up, or would the call leave our lives? And Barbara again, she said, let's pray about it. We prayed a long time and listened to a lot of proposals. And the day they came in that restaurant, and Howard Johnson's here in Nashville, Tennessee, and said, if we will do a family reunion tour and record, it will not interfere whatsoever in what you're doing now. And that was, I know, Vestal, that was the greatest word you'd heard.
Yeah, that was
And
tremendous.
I said, I looked at Barbara, she was crying. She said, we'll do it. And we signed the contracts, and then I walked in that studio, and I heard those electrifying musicians strike that happy chord again that I knew was Happy Goodman Family.
That's right.
Then I was elated, and I became like a kid with a new toy.
I guess after you left, I tried to keep something going called Rusty Goodman and the Family Band. Mm-hmm. Made a couple of albums for Canaan and a couple of good records. I felt like they were good records, and they felt like they were good records. And I had a fledgling writer in my family. I have two daughters, Tracy and Tanya. And of course, Tanya was a fledgling songwriter and began to really come out as a singer along about that time too. And her husband, Michael Sykes, whom she had married before you and I, Sam, had split our group. Well, had gone our separate ways. And she had married Michael Sykes. And so I kept a group going called Rusty Goodman and the Family Band, made a couple of records. But in 1986, in Chicago, I was doing a concert Sunday night in October. And I began to have chills and fever. And was rushed to the hospital and found out that I had a blood clot in my right leg, later diagnosed as having metastatic prostate cancer. But through a lot of, this was in 86, October, but through a lot of prayer and modern medicine and technology of the doctors and the hand of God, I'm not going to take anything from the doctors because I know that they have done a tremendous job. I went through a terrible siege of weight loss, hair loss, got down to 160-something pounds. But today I'm busting at the seams of 200.
And your hair all
and I
come
got
back.
more hair than I've ever had. And I got to get a haircut.
And you never sung better.
Before salvation in a far and distant land. Two rusty nails pierced two precious hands. There a man named Jesus for silver was sold on an old rugged cross. Love story was told.
After all these trials, and I thought, Lord, I can't do it. I can't do it. I haven't sung. During this time, I had just had a few concerts, and I thought, I can't do it. I'm not going to have a voice. It's not going to be there. But I got a supernatural touch that came. And the huskiness and the edge began to come back to my voice that I hadn't had in months.
Rusty, when you got in the studio and you were worried about whether or not you would have the voice to do it, but all of the edge came back in your voice, the crisp sound of Rusty Goodman came back. And I can brag on you if I want to, you're the greatest singer alive. And when I heard that, you know what I knew had happened? You had said, as all of us have said, God, we give back to you the talent that you gave us.
There's one thing for sure, though, that our personal ministry, we're not going to drop that.
No.
Sam's not going to drop his, you're not going to drop yours. But this is a collective get-together reunion tour. It's reuniting the family once again together.
And you're listening to the Happy Goodman Family Reunion Radio Special. The Goodmans have seen a lot of history, and you're about to hear some fascinating stories, taking us all the way back to the 1930s and the roots of the Happy Goodman family. Howard remembers how the group got its name.
We'd been to church one night and had an old Model A Ford, Model A. Them things didn't burn a lot of gas.
It had us, didn't it?
It had us. They didn't burn a lot of gas, but we didn't have money enough, really, to buy a gallon of gas to get back home from church. We got nearly home and ran out of gas.
How much did gas cost back then, Aaron?
Oh, 15 cents. 10, 15 cents a gallon, yeah. I paid a 9 cents a gallon for gas, yeah.
Before our time.
Told you, Vestal.
Before your time, you were little kids then. But anyhow, we were pushing that car to get up on top of the hill, and Mom and Dad was there. And of course, you know, you remember our dad as an old man. See, Dad, he was 50 years old when he and Mom married, and she was 25. He was exactly twice as old as her. Then they had 8 children, and I'm the oldest.
So there was 7 kids out there pushing the car.
Not all, maybe, I don't know, there's maybe some younger than you. I've told you about it, you don't remember. Got up on top of that hill, and everybody was laughing because we wanted to get it up there where it would roll, and it could roll a long ways in them Alabama hills. And everybody was laughing, and Mom just fell out. Our mother said, this has to be the Happy Goodman family.
But when we started
But
singing,
it started then.
But now, wait a minute. Now, how many was singing at that time?
Well, there wasn't,
You know,
but about 2 that was big enough to sing. It's me and our oldest sister, Gussie. And
Gussie and...
maybe Stella.
Stella.
Might have been. But the rest...
That's a trio.
Yeah, but the rest wasn't hardly able to sing, you know.
Wasn't big enough.
Wasn't big enough.
But now, Howard, the first time I saw any picture of any of this group that they said, this is the Happy Goodman family, it was you and...
What is your name?
I'm just here.
Where'd you come from?
Yeah, the first one
You're
I
not
saw,
here yet.
But the first pictures I saw, though, Rusty, was Howard and Ruth and Stella and Eloise.
Yeah, that's the
And
first
that's when you were singing with C.T. Douglas in Birmingham
Right.
on radio.
Yeah.
But they were still called a trio.
They still called, but they were the Happy Goodman.
But
They were the Happy
we
Goodman
were not
trio.
referred to then. They kind of dropped the happy part for a while, and They called us a trio then because it wasn't
Goodman Trio.
And Brother Douglas, he had called us the Goodman Trio. And actually, honey, Vestal, that happened on Sunday morning, December the 7th, 1941.
Y'all did a lot of radio, sung on the radio.
Yeah, we were singing on the radio when that happened, and it came over the radio that the Japanese had bombed Pearl Harbor, and then it shut us down. Naturally, the news took over, and I'll never forget that morning. It was a very, very sad day. Everybody sit in the studio, and everybody sit there and cried and wept, and we didn't know really what we was weeping about because we didn't know the horror of World War II until later on. But it was
Howard,
a terrible thing.
Our gospel music, though, survived that.
And came alive, actually came alive.
Because people were looking for something that would make them happy.
That was
And
during
they
the
could,
time.
if they could
Yes.
hear us, we would be on a megaphone.
We didn't have any trouble getting a crowd in the church.
Somebody
then.
made a statement
We'd go
the
in
other
a
day.
church, and the churches were packed because people were hunting peace. They wanted some consolation of something. But here is the thing, and you boys, Rusty and Sam and Vestal sitting here, and myself, all four of us know that the thing that kept us alive was singing something that was some truth was behind
From
it.
within us.
Now we sung about the boys in service. They wrote songs like that. The Leuven brothers came up, Ira and Charlie Leuven, way back then, with a song that we recorded, "Weapon of Prayer." Do you remember that? But that done something to the people. That's what they wanted to hear, some consoling words. So that, to me, gospel music is good news. See, gospel means good news.
Oh, will the Lord be with me when I go through the valley? Will he walk beside me? Will he hold my hand when it's time to cross that chilly Jordan River? Will he guide me to that blessed promised land? Oh, will the Lord be standing somewhere round my bedside when the doctor shakes his head and walks away? Will I hear him whisper, "I am with thee"? Will he lead me to that land of endless day? And will I enter Jordan Valley? I know I need have no fear. The Lord has promised he'll guide the way before me, and he'll take me to that mansion over there.
So far, we've heard just a couple of the 12 great songs on the new Happy Goodman family album, The Reunion. And we've covered the 1930s and most of the 1940s. But the best is yet to come for the Goodmans. In just a moment, Howard, Vestal, Sam, and Rusty reminisce about the 50s and 60s. Bill Gaither talks about the group's impact on him and on gospel music. And we'll take you to a live Goodmans concert from 1951. Don't go away.
Yes, you guide my feet and hold my trembling hand.
You're listening to the Happy Goodman Family Reunion Radio Special.
Thank you, Wally, and we are very happy to be here tonight at the Ryman Auditorium here in Nashville, Tennessee, singing for a lot of our friends on this very first Friday night in 1951 for the Wally Fowler monthly all-night sing. I want you to listen now to a song that we'll soon have on our new record. Thank God I'm in His care. I thank my God I'm in His care.
One day as I was walking down the lonesome road, the Spirit spoke unto me, and it filled my heart with joy. One day as I was walking down the lonesome road, singing, I thank my God I'm in His care. Oh Lord, I am in His care, in my Savior's care. I am in His care, in my King Jesus got his arm wrapped all around me. No evil thought can ever harm me, 'cause I thank my God I'm in his care.
The Wally Fowler All Night Sings in the late 40s and early 50s catapulted the Goodmans to a new level of popularity. One of gospel music's finest singer-songwriters, Bill Gaither, remembers getting to know the group as the Happy Goodman Family Reunion Radio special continues.
The first time I actually heard the Happy Goodman Family dated way back to the Ryman Auditorium in 1949, probably, with Howard and Sam and Rusty and their sisters. But the first time I really heard them seriously was on record after they had gone to Canaan and they had made the I Wouldn't Take Nothing for My Journey Now tune. And when I heard that, my ears perked up and I said, wow, what is this? Such excitement that could happen only when those four people started singing, Vestal and Howard and Sam and Rusty. And over the years I have got to know them a lot better personally and have found them to be wonderfully warm, committed people who really love Jesus, and very, very unique in their presentation. I don't think gospel music was the same after they came by with their particular brand of singing.
I am in his care, in my Savior's care. I am in his care, in my Savior's care.
King Jesus got his arms wrapped all around me. No evil thought can ever harm me, 'cause
I thank my God I'm in his care. I thank my God I'm in his care.
When I really met you, you were traveling and singing, and that's when you first started coming to Nashville.
Yeah.
To the all-night
To
singing.
Wally Fowler's all
I
night
guess then you came to your first one in '48, and by then you've got Sam and Rusty or
Junior and Charles.
Junior and Charles,
And even
Gussie and Stella and Eloise and Ruth and Bobby Ray and Jimmy and Labriska.
yeah.
Oh,
I'm kind of curious as to what we was traveling in. What were we traveling in?
ask me.
Rusty, we had
I mean, at that 40, you talking about 1948?
We traveled in anything that anybody would sell us on credit.
In '48.
And not requiring down payment.
I'm satisfied with just a cottage below, a little silver and a little gold. But in that city where the ransom will shine, I want a gold one, that silver line. I've got a mansion just over the hilltop in that bright land where we'll never grow old. And someday yonder we will never more wander, but walk on streets that are purest gold.
I remembered back when even the girls were singing with us that we were at a concert in Savannah, Tennessee with the Spear family. And we had come off the stage from singing, and Dad Spear came around and sat down by me, put his arm around me and said, "Vestal, I saw you a while ago, and I need to tell you what I saw you doing." He said, "I saw you not just singing, but I saw you preaching the word with all of your heart." I said, "No, Dad Spear, you don't know what you're talking about." Because, see, he didn't know that my daddy had told me that all my life, and I didn't want to hear it because I wasn't fixing to. And here God sent this precious old saint of God, Dad Spear, around to put his arm around me at a concert that night and say, "Get ready, you're going to preach the word too."
The 50s were a decade of change for the Happy Goodman family. Their home base changed almost yearly, and the U.S. military would eventually borrow the services of both Sam and Rusty for duty in the Korean War.
I volunteered. Them boys They was, and I didn't volunteer because I was brave.
No.
It was the coward's way out. The way I looked at it.
You didn't want to go to the Army.
I didn't want to go to the Army
Ground pounder.
because them guys was going out and they was going to leave and they was taking.
Well, you
weeks
went
to
in the
make
Air
training.
Force,
I
and
went
you're
there.
afraid to ride airplane.
Made
If
a
y'all
little
will
house.
remember though, back then, back in the late 40s and early 50s, a group such as the Happy Goodman family at that particular time, as we were beginning to be known as, any group would seek a new territory.
Yeah.
To
Yeah,
go.
well, that's why you
if
had
there
to do
if
that.
there was a radio station that had a far-reaching signal,
Yeah.
or a television. The television hadn't really happened
No.
at that particular time.
52 is
Worked for a
when we
radio
moved
station.
from Wingo, Kentucky to Evansville, and we moved from Wingo, Kentucky to Evansville because the radio station in Mayfield, Kentucky was not reaching out that far then,
Right.
and they had a radio station in Evansville that would reach out farther, so we moved to Evansville and went on that radio
And didn't
station
do
up
any
there
good
and
there.
didn't do any good there.
people didn't know
So we bought that
up
big
there.
old house and couldn't do nothing with it. So then we left there. There's a radio station down in Swainsboro, Georgia that's just booming everywhere. And the man has built a big auditorium and he's
Right.
going to sponsor our concerts and
Did good
everything.
there.
And we moved to
Oh.
Swainsboro for a year and did fabulous
That's
in
where I was
Swainsboro.
drafted from.
And Rusty got drafted in Swainsboro and went
Just
to the,
when we was doing
just
good.
when we were doing good, Rusty left us. Then we stayed there a year, and then television opened. Boy, live television.
You remember what happened while we were there at that radio station, WJAT in Swainsboro, Georgia,
Yeah.
at the auditorium.
Right.
The very first concert they had in that auditorium. Do you remember who the guest group was?
I do.
No,
You do.
I don't.
The Lewis
The
family.
Lewis family.
Oh,
That's right.
yes.
And we paid them, I never will forget, paid them
They were
$50 to come. And Pop Lewis said, we've never accepted a dime for
That
our
was their
singing.
first job.
That was the first money they ever received.
And Little Roy was
Little Roy was
I mean,
8
he
years
was
old.
Little Roy then.
Little Roy was 8 years old.
Beautiful.
And stood on a
And we
box.
helped them get a recording contract on White Church Records.
That's
You remember that?
Yeah.
Now
Oh,
that was
isn't
the
that something?
starting of the Lewis.
But then after the Georgia thing, well then live television opened, and we were on every morning at 6 or 6:30.
Now y'all
Live.
moved, when I was drafted, you moved
We
from
moved
there to
Asheville,
That's
North
right.
Carolina.
You were still in service, right?
Because he got out after we'd been up there in Asheville just a little while, and then it was Howard and me and Gussie and Stella and Eloise and Bobby Ray. And we did live television every morning, 5 mornings a week.
Oh, Lord,
every
yes.
morning, and that lasted a year, and it was killing us all. And the girls they got families, they got to do this, they got to do that. So we said, okay, let's move them all back to Evansville. We all moved back to Evansville. And then, man, I got Ricky and Vicky, and I can't travel, so
remember-
I started staying home.
But Rusty, you know, when you came on, when she was talking about coming to Evansville, this was an era that where you had decided that you got out of the Army.
But hadn't the group had quit
We
singing?
kind of,
Sorta,
yeah, kind
yeah.
of. But you had decided you was going to make your mark in country music and rock music with writing songs.
Moved to Nashville. I
And,
moved to Nashville in 1956.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And
That's the year the family group, the old original family group broke up.
You wrote songs. They were good. They were good country songs. It just wasn't what you were supposed to be doing.
nobody was cutting them.
That's
what
right.
that meant.
And so then the Plainsman down in Texas called you.
Plainsman offered me a job, and
And you went down.
I actually pawned an Argus C3 camera that I had bought in Korea, bought a bus ticket, and went to Dallas, Texas.
That's when it disbanded.
Right.
Gussie and Stella and
All of them
Eloise.
got married.
No, they went to Evansville and started
An upholstery
an upholstery shop
Some of them got
called,
married, didn't
called the
they?
Three
Yeah.
Sisters
Some of
Upholstery.
them got married.
Vestal and I went to
Madisonville.
Madisonville, Kentucky, first time we ever saw that little old town.
Oh.
And we went there and started a revival, and the people wanted us to stay and start a church. And remember, that's where it came from. The Life Temple Church started there.
That's where I met my bride.
And you met your bride then, and we stayed there 30 years.
Revival is here today. Lift your hands, let me hear you say, Holy Ghost, take over now. Take us up to higher ground.
Revival from the new Happy Goodman family album, The Reunion. With the departure of the Goodman sisters and Rusty now with the Plainsmen, the group was a trio again. When we come back, we'll hear how the Goodmans got their first recording contract and finally gelled into the four members who would become known the world over as the Happy Goodman family. Stay with us. I'm Chris Daniels, and this is the Happy Goodman Family Reunion Radio Special. Welcome back to the Happy Goodman Family Reunion Radio Special. In the early 60s, Howard and Vestal were pastoring the church in Kentucky. Rusty was with the Plainsmen, and Sam was selling insurance. Well, God was about to surprise all of them.
Able, my God is able to take care of me. Able to understand all of my needs. He is the light that leads me through my darkest day. When I'm not able, I know He's there.
I came up there to Madisonville,
Right.
61.
I'll never forget when you came
with
in.
the Plainsmen.
Oh,
And with the Plainsmen, we sung at your church.
yeah, little church then.
And then the next day, you and I, Howard, was sitting in your living room watching black and white TV,
Yeah.
and they made the announcement from Channel 13 in Bowling Green. If anybody out there knows of any talent
Yeah, think about that.
that would like to perform on television, please contact us at this number, blah, 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 blah. I said, you guys ought to go over there. Now, I'm still with the Plainsmen, remember?
Yeah.
I said, you guys ought to go over there and audition. And remember when we went over, they loved you. I mean,
They
Howard
eat
said,
it up,
"You
didn't
reckon-"
they?
Howard said, you reckon they'd really like us? Yeah, man, they loved y'all, the three of you.
Yeah.
The trio, Sam, Howard, and Vestal.
I never will forget, Rusty, when you came then. You remember the time you came and God was really blessing us at that little church. But you came in there and you didn't have money to really do anything with. You
That's
didn't
right.
really.
Had a few bucks.
But anyway, you came in there and we got the organ, came the day you got there. You'd never played an organ.
No, and
But
I never
you sat
really
down
did,
there.
never really learned
You
too
did now,
good.
Rusty.
But you learned good, and it went on, and anyhow, but the first thing you said, let's go to Nashville and make a record. And I said, Rusty, they ain't nobody would
You
sign
know, out there
us.
on that old organ at that little old church, I
Yeah.
wrote
The Answer's on the way.
The Answer's on the Way. I wrote Who Am I?
I
Yeah,
wouldn't take nothing from
I
a
wrote
journey.
I Wouldn't Take Nothing from a Journey Now. That was one of the first ones I wrote.
That's right.
On the organ. And then that was in 1963. Then we got the recording contract
yeah.
in 64.
Rusty, you knew this Sims, but we first went down there and we tried everybody in town.
Well, we first went
Would
to
nobody
John T.
record?
Benson.
John T. Benson, he would
Jr.
record. Yeah, nobody record us. They didn't know we could sell any records. I didn't know we could either.
Then I told you of a guy that I had met while I was with the Plainsmen.
That's right.
His name is Russell Sims.
Yes.
And Russell.
He'd take a chance on a three-legged horse.
Yes.
He would, wouldn't he?
So
Yeah.
and we went to talk to Russell, and and Russell told him, and he had heard us sing. He said, "Well, Rusty, if what you're telling me, if they're as good as you say they are."
Yeah.
Now what he said?
That's what he
that's
said.
what
He said, "I'll sign them," and this was in 1964.
Right. But he said,
I don't have the
I
money.
don't have the money. He said, I'll need $600 for the
He
musicians
said,
in
"I'll pay
studio.
for the studio time."
Yeah, he paid for that, but he needs $600 for musicians.
We didn't have $600.
No. I went back to Madisonville and a friend in the church. I said, I want you to sign a note with me for $600. I'm going to make an album. And they did. And the title of the album was I'm Too Near Home.
That was the first of more than 20 albums the Happy Goodman family has recorded so far. Let's listen to another song from their new reunion album. It's called Sweet Morning Song.
Your presence, dear Lord, is all
I need to follow your footsteps wherever they lead. Day after day, my soul longs to be led by your spirit and caught up in thee.
Sam recalls the night in 1964 when the Happy Goodman family returned to the Ryman Auditorium.
We went out there, Rusty, and we done I'm Too Near Home to Turn Back Now.
Right.
And destroyed that auditorium.
Yeah.
It was utterly pandemonium. Wally had just asked us on the air, would we come back and be his special guest next first Friday night? We told him, yeah. We came in there and we had 400 Too Near Home albums. We took that 400 albums out on the edge of that stage. And there was all these pretty record racks out there. And these people had pretty displays, and they was just, boy, and they sung. I love to hear them sing. But when we sung I'm Too Near Home.
Everybody there could sing better than we could.
Right.
Well, they had good musicians.
We sung Born to Serve the Lord, and I'm Too Near Home. And when we did, they turned the intermission time loose. And Rusty, I thought people was gonna hurt us and these other people. And finally, Jake, I never will forget Jake. I think his toupee even got on crooked that night. But he backed up, Rusty. He said, I ain't never seen nothing like this. He said, let's take our record rack down. And he took his record rack down and moved backstage. And he'd come back. And Jake was never a man of a lot of words. No. I mean, if he said anything, you couldn't hardly understand him. No. He was the original Mumbles, I think, for Dick Tracy. But anyhow, he said, them people know what they want, don't they?
Remember the night that we came to the singing here in Nashville when they what was the agency that started the Jubilee? Showbiz. All of their crew were at that concert.
We didn't know that.
We didn't know they were there.
We would have been awful.
We would have been petrified. But their crew was there to decide they wanted a family group for the gospel singing Jubilee. And the other family group was the Seago Brothers and Naomi.
That's exactly right.
And they listened that night, and we didn't know they were there. And the Happy Goodman family and the Seago Brothers and Naomi, and that night they decided that it would be the Happy Goodman family.
So when the Jubilee was organized in 1965,
right,
we were all sitting around tables at the old Noel Hotel, downtown Nashville, Tennessee.
Right.
That's where our first rehearsal was held, back in one of the back rooms. The Florida Boys, Dixie Echoes, the Happy Goodman family,
and the Couriers.
Right? And among that group of people sitting out in the restaurant was Gerald McCracken, and Marvin Norcross, president and vice president of Canaan Records, of the new Canaan Records.
Sims Records still never did rise enough with enough of finance, enough of money to promote the Goodmans.
Right.
And finally, then we tried to get another label. We tried then to get Benson to take us again. And John T. come up to the house and said, well, will you give me a mortgage on whatever you got here?
Guaranteed to sell so many records.
And guaranteed to sell so many records. I said, John,
we'll hold the title of your bus.
Yeah, if we get a bus.
We should have given him that.
Yeah.
That's when we began to talk to the people in Atlanta that owned Sing Records.
That's
and
right.
It was the Lefevres.
Urias
And they were
Lefevre.
Sing
Urias
Records
and
was a
Maurice.
very profitable company.
Good
They were
company.
signing everybody.
Yeah.
And they offered us a good bit of money to sign with them.
And we went to Memphis.
Yeah.
And we were in the Peabody Hotel in Memphis.
Where the Ducks are.
Where the Ducks are, yeah. And you and Howard were in a room negotiating with Marvin and Gerald.
Marvin and Gerald.
And Maurice and Urias Lefevre for Sing was down in another room, and you were going to go and negotiate with them.
And we didn't plan on both of them being
We
there.
didn't know that both groups were going to be there. We were going there to meet with one. I don't even remember which one now.
You know, that day we signed an agreement.
That day.
We signed an agreement just on a rough piece of paper
Yep.
with Gerald McCracken
Yes.
that we will not talk to any other record company. We will not make any other negotiations.
No more negotiations.
No more negotiations.
This is it.
It's
This
going to
is
be
it.
Word.
That is the time then that we became involved with Word and Records.
That must have been a good decision for everyone. The Happy Goodman family is still with the Word label, celebrating their silver anniversary this year. Let's hope they have many more years of singing great songs like this one, Standing in the Presence of the King.
Today I found myself in a most unusual place. All at once I was standing face to face with someone I knew so well, yet I had never seen. I was standing in the presence of the King. Standing in the presence of the King, the world just slips away beneath my feet. Mortal man could never write the song that my heart sings while I'm standing in the presence of the King.
The Happy Goodman family reunion radio special will continue.
Hi, this is Dolly Parton, and I just want to tell you that the Parton family is happy that the Happy Goodman family are finally back together after 10 years. I love the Happy Goodman family, and you are going to love these songs.
Here in our final segment of the Happy Goodman family reunion radio special, the Goodmans reminisce about some of the notable people they've met and look back at God's hand on their ministry. But first, Rusty has written a song that looks squarely at the present and the problem of the homeless.
A worn-out coat he neatly folds, and he puts it in the place where the shadow of the steeple will rest upon his face. The choir sings, the church bells ring, people gather round. They just shake their head as they walk away from the figure lying on the ground. While in the shadow of the steeple, someone's dying. Oh, does anybody care?
But Rusty, that 65 up through to 1980, the Happy Goodman family enjoyed a success that to sit here and try to reminisce all of it,
We can't do it.
well, it would just be impossible. You figure
Mind-boggling, isn't it?
the Dinah Shore show from Los Angeles.
4 times we did
Yeah,
that.
and rubbing elbows with superstars that would just fall out when they heard us sing. I remember
They thought we was great. Don't tell them no
we
different.
was on the Dinah Shore show though, and they was trying to set the lighting. Remember? And we tore into Canaan. I'm living in Canaan now, and boy, we was burning the wind, singing that song, just tearing it up. And the boy that was fixing the lights up on the catwalk, he come down and laid down on the floor in front of us.
I remember that.
Till we got through singing, and he said, I ain't never heard nothing like this. And he said, I just couldn't set them lights. I had to get down here and wait till it's over with.
You know, it was
In
during that
CBS
time.
studio.
Yeah.
It was during that time that one of the real popular television programs came on the air, and it was a 24-hour program. Bought their own satellites, you know, and the Happy Goodman family was doing it quite often. If y'all would remember, we
Yeah.
were doing the show a lot. And the host of the show ran over to us one day. We were singing "I'm Living in Canaan Now," and he said, "You know," he said, "not only is this my favorite group, but he said, you'd be surprised at people that love to hear the Happy Goodman family." He said,
Yeah, I remember
"Well, we
that.
just got a call
Yeah.
the other day from Perry Como's wife, wants to have the Happy Goodman family on." And said, Perry Como and his wife said, "You're not having the Goodman family on enough." I thought this guy was nuts.
So many times we ran into Hank Williams
Sung a lot of dates with Hank.
Sang a lot of dates with Hank Williams, and we did a concert date then in Dallas, Texas, at that big barn. What was it? A Cow Palace or something?
Cow
Palace.
Something.
Whatever.
That's not what they
And
call it.
Hank-
Leon, Texas, we were supposed to.
Hank was there, and we did a concert out in the pasture at De Leon, Texas, for W.B. Nowlin. I ran into Minnie Pearl just a few weeks back at the grocery store, and Minnie Pearl says, "Vestal, you remember us going out there and being out there in that pasture?" I said, "Minnie, do you know how many years that's been?" She says, "But I remembered, and you could hear y'all singing for miles."
You know, Howard, our music has reached deep into a lot of hearts. Even now, we was in the studio making that first album, What a Happy Time. There was a young man that had been in the studio all night. We was at the old Columbia studios. We was in the little one. You remember that, Rusty? They had the little studio downstairs.
The little studio.
He come down the stairs, and the best I can remember, he didn't have his shoes
Didn't
on.
have his shoes. He had his shoes.
He had his socks on.
And his sock
And his
feet.
black shirt and black pants.
Sat down over
And
in the
sat
corner.
down in the corner, and long black hair. He sat over there, and we got through singing. He said, "I sure wish I could do that." And it was Johnny Cash.
Johnny Cash.
That's right.
He said, "I pray to the Lord
I wish I could do
that
that.
I could do that."
And he's doing that now. He's doing
Yeah,
it
he
right now.
is.
And you know, Rusty,
He's doing it.
I hope somewhere back in the early days of the Goodmans that we've had influence on people like that would cause them to change their hearts.
So many stories.
Yeah, on and on you could go.
One that I recall so vividly is a little 18-year-old boy walked up backstage in California, and he said, "Can I borrow your guitar? I want to sing you a song."
Mm-hmm.
And the last thing I wanted to hear that night was a song because
Somebody singing me another
I
song.
was wore out. I did not want to hear anybody. I wanted to get on my bunk on the bus and go to bed and go to sleep. But I reluctantly handed this kid, he was 18 or 19 years old, I handed him my guitar and I said, "Let me hear your song." And he sang, "There's a lighthouse on the hillside."
Yeah.
Of course, everybody knows it was Ronnie Henson. Now, I could have told him, "I'm too tired," but I told him, I said, "Son, that's a good song. Let us take it with us and record it." And we put it on our next record.
Yeah.
Now, talking
And of course,
about
he's one of the
Ron.
best songwriters that there is.
Now talking about Ronnie Henson, he's got a song on this new album.
He'll come as no
He'll
surprise.
come as no surprise.
Brand new song.
It's a great song.
We've heard the wondrous story. We believed it every word. Accepting Christ the Savior, our hearts have been assured. And now we're working in His kingdom with our eyes upon the clouds, listening any moment to hear the trumpet sound. He'll come as no surprise. He'll break those eastern skies. Our long-awaited flight will lift us high. We are nobody knows, but the day He comes, we'll go. We'll keep a watchful eye. He'll come as no surprise.
Are you making plans to stay here? Like there's plenty of time to spare. You're saving for some rainy day so you can be prepared. Unless your plans include me leaving right before your eyes. Friend, be ready to go with me, for He'll come as no surprise.
He'll come as no surprise.
Hello, I'm James Blackwood speaking, and I'm happy to tell you that the Happy Goodman family are back together again. Isn't that great news for gospel music fans everywhere? You know, the Happy Goodman family have been a great force in gospel music for many years, and I'm happy to see them back together again.
And they are back in a big way. But their 10-year sabbatical has given the members of the Happy Goodman family a chance to step back and see how God has guided them all these years.
We didn't understand all of the handiwork of God. Of course, we can't understand it now, or we'd be as smart as God. But God had a purpose for us diversifying. That's the way they would call it on the stock market, wouldn't it? We reached
Good words.
We reached in the past 10 years 4 times as many people as we would have reached collectively.
Yeah.
You see, as the 4 of us trying to hang together and going against the will of God. Then, Rusty, the millions of albums that were sold, and I'm talking about collectively.
Did you know in '72 we received a plaque from Word?
Still got it, yeah.
That says, this represents 2 million sales.
2 million sales.
This was in 1972.
And you know, Rusty, when we saw what was really coming, I think, and God helped us see that the commercial aspect of gospel music was fixing to get out of hand. And I think that then he really laid his hand on our lives to farther not our singing careers, you know what I mean, but the ministering aspect of the 4 individuals that sit here in doing something else other than just walking out on stage and seeing who could hit the highest note or the lowest note. Or Howard and Vestal, Howard and Vestal knew that God had something more for them to do.
1980.
And they just went right ahead and done it. And then
that's when the family really left.
Well, me and Rusty was going to try to hang it together, and we cut a couple of records, for Word.
And they were good.
After that, good records. But Howard, the family wasn't there. And I'm talking about the family of these 4
And it never has been with me and Vestal.
We were in Cleveland, Ohio, and I had a little group of young people that are singing that came and sang there, and they said, "You Happy Goodmans caused us to want to sing."
Right.
So God grant that this album
We'll make
caused
more.
a lot more people to want to sing.
And sing gospel music.
Don't give up. Keep heading for the heavenly shore. Don't give up. When you knock, he will open the door. Jesus made a way for you to go through. Praise him, he will give you life anew. Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up. Keep heading for the heavenly shore. Don't give up. When you knock, he will open the door.
Jesus made a way for you to go through. Praise him and he'll give you life anew.
Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up.
What do you think about that song, Howard? It's a good one, ain't it?
It's a great, great song, Rusty. I really like it. It kind of says something for the Goodmans, don't it?
I think you're right.
We can't afford to give up now.
We never will give up. Sam, we've come a long way, haven't we, honey?
You got that right, Vestal. You know, there's a lot of times we thought about giving up. There was that something way down deep inside that would say, don't give up now. You know, I believe that something inside is saying quitters never win. You got that right, Rusty. Ain't nothing like going on.
You know, I like the part in the song that says, keep heading for the heavenly shore. You see, there is a heavenly shore, and the Christians are headed that way, thank God.
Well, Howard, you know, I think the old car we used to have didn't know anything about the heavenly shore, because every time we'd get ready to go sing somewhere, the old car seemed like it never would want to start.
That's the truth. That's when we really felt like quitting, when that thing wouldn't start.
But Howard, the easiest thing in the world to do is quit. Well, we didn't think we could make it this far, but we have.
Oh, but Paul said when you've done all you know to do to stand, just stand there.
Keep standing, that's what he said. Vestal, do you reckon Paul would have liked this song?
Rusty, I think Paul would have probably sung this song.
It's a great, great song, isn't it? You got that right, and there ain't no way we're gonna give up now.
Well, you know, singing is our life. We just can't quit.
This has been the Happy Goodman Family Reunion Radio Special, a Colors Audio production. Thanks to this fine station, the folks at Word Records, including Kelly Tolson and my executive producer, Mark Campbell, and to the Happy Goodman family for making this special possible. I'm Chris Daniels. Keep listening for more great songs from the Goodmans, and look for their new album, The Reunion, and a Goodmans concert in your area, as they bless another decade of gospel music fans with the incomparable music of the Happy Goodman family.
Keep on watchful eye. He'll come as no surprise.
He'll come as no surprise.
Hello, I'm Sam.
And my name is Rusty.
I'm Howard.
And I'm Vestal.
We're the Happy Goodman family.
Be listening right here on this radio station.
For the Happy Goodman Family Reunion Radio Special.
It's the first time in 10 years, and you will not want to miss it.